Most people are told that progress is this slow, painful journey. You work hard for years, you grind, you wait, and maybe one day you'll finally arrive. But here's the truth. Progress doesn't actually move at a fixed speed. It's customizable. You can either drag it out for decades, or you can compress it into months, sometimes even weeks, depending on how you approach it. Think about it like a video game. Some players wander around endlessly, repeating the same levels because they don't know the shortcuts. Others discover a hidden path or a cheat code that lets them level up faster. The game didn't change, only their awareness of how to play it did. Life is the same way. Most people settle into the default setting, slow. They think that's just the way life is. But what if the speed of your growth is something you get to set? I remember seasons in my own life where progress felt like crawling through mud. I was doing the same things over and over, working, waiting, surviving, and nothing seemed to move. It was frustrating because deep down I knew I was capable of more, but I kept telling myself that growth just takes time. Then something shifted. I realized time wasn't the issue. It was my approach. I was living like progress only had one setting, when in reality it could accelerate if I aligned with the right principles. Here's the key. Slow growth is usually the result of scattering your energy. When you pour yourself into 100 different directions, you dilute your progress. But when you focus, when you choose one meaningful vision and pour your energy there, progress doesn't crawl, it runs. That's why some people seem to skyrocket in a short time, while others spend years stuck at the same level. It's not that one has more hours in the day, it's that one is playing the game at a different speed. Science even backs this up. Psychologists talk about neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. When you immerse yourself in focused, intentional practice, your brain literally accelerates its learning. What might take someone years of half-hearted effort can take you months if you engage fully. It's like learning a language. If you study an hour a week, you'll be struggling for years. But if you live in the country and speak it daily, in a few months, you're fluent. The speed wasn't fixed. It was determined by the intensity of your engagement. The Bible reflects this truth too. In Joel 2:25, God says he will restore the years the locusts have eaten. That's acceleration. It's the idea that what you thought would take a lifetime can be redeemed and compressed when you align yourself with God's principles. Look at Joseph. He went from prison to palace in a single day. That wasn't normal speed. That was a shift in alignment that changed everything. Now here's the uncomfortable part. Most people never experience this because they've accepted the slow slog as normal. They believe breakthroughs only happen after decades of pain, so they never even try to accelerate. They wait, they hesitate. They convince themselves that progress must always equal suffering. And because they believe it, they live it. But what if you stopped waiting for permission? What if you decided to reframe progress not as a slow, linear crawl, but as something you can accelerate with the right focus, the right habits, and the right mindset? What if the years you thought you needed could actually be collapsed into months? This is where the idea of leveling up so fast it feels like cheating becomes real. It's not about skipping the process. It's about refusing to let the process drag longer than it needs to. It's about customizing the speed of your growth so you're not stuck on level 1 forever. And this is where we step into the first practical shift. How to actually break free from scattered energy and start channeling it in a way that accelerates everything you touch. Because once you see this, you'll realize the fast lane isn't reserved for a chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to change how they play the game. Most people think progress is just about effort, but the truth is it's more about structure than strain. You can work as hard as you want, but if your habits and environment are not aligned, you'll always feel like you're swimming upstream. On the other hand, if you create the right habits and design the right environment, growth compounds almost effortlessly. It becomes exponential instead of linear. Here's what I mean. Imagine two people training for a marathon. One trains randomly, running whenever they feel like it, on any path, with no clear plan. The other follows a structured routine, sets milestones, and surrounds themselves with a community of runners. Who do you think levels up faster? It's not the one who works harder. It's the one who built smart habits and placed themselves in an environment that makes growth inevitable. This is exactly how life works. Your environment is either pulling you up or holding you down. If you're surrounded by distractions, negativity, or people who drain you, it doesn't matter how disciplined you think you are. You're fighting unnecessary resistance every day. But if your environment feeds your focus through uplifting people, helpful routines, and reminders of your goals, then momentum becomes natural. It's like the difference between swimming against the current and swimming with it. Smart habits are the other side of this equation. Most people underestimate the power of small, repeated actions. They look for dramatic leaps when in reality, mastery comes from the boring basics done consistently. Think of brushing your teeth. It's such a small habit, but imagine the disaster if you ignored it for years. Now apply that to wealth, fitness, relationships, or personal growth. Small habits done daily lead to exponential results because they stack over time. Physics explains this beautifully. Momentum builds with consistent force. A rocket doesn't get into orbit because of one giant push, it gets there by sustained, consistent thrust. Habits are that thrust. Every small action you repeat pushes you closer to escape velocity. And once you break free from inertia, the results feel exponential. The Bible also affirms this principle. In Galatians 6:7 it says, "Whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap." Habits are the seeds, and your environment is the soil. If you plant good seeds in fertile soil, the harvest multiplies. But if you scatter seeds in bad soil, or worse, plant nothing at all, then nothing grows, no matter how much you wish it would. For me, this truth hit hard when I looked at my own life. I realized I had habits that were keeping me broke. Late nights of online gaming, wasting energy on distractions, procrastinating on the work that mattered most. My environment fed that cycle because I wasn't intentional about what I surrounded myself with. The shift happened when I started listening to mentors like Bob Proctor and Myron Golden, when I filled my room with books instead of excuses, when I replaced endless games with learning, building, and creating. It wasn't glamorous at first, but it built momentum. And once the habits stacked, my results started to accelerate. This is why I say exponential improvement doesn't come from working harder. It comes from aligning smarter. Put yourself in the right environment and commit to habits that support your vision, and growth will begin to feel automatic. People will look at you and think you've discovered a secret shortcut. But the truth is, you've simply stopped fighting yourself. You've designed a life where progress is the natural outcome. And this leads us directly to the next principle. Because once your habits and environment are aligned, something amazing happens. Small wins start stacking, and those wins don't just add up, they multiply. They compound into something so powerful it feels unstoppable. That's what I want to show you next. Most people think growth is this straight line. You do a little, you get a little, step by step, inch by inch. But that's not how it really works. Real growth, the kind that makes people look at you and say, "What happened to you? You leveled up so fast," isn't linear at all. It's compound. It stacks, multiplies, and suddenly accelerates in ways you never expected. Think about learning a skill. At first, it feels painfully slow. You stumble, you fail, you barely see progress. But then, out of nowhere, something clicks. Suddenly, all those tiny repetitions, all those little improvements, merge together, and now you're operating at a whole new level. That's the compound effect. Each habit, each practice, each lesson you absorbed builds on top of the last one until the results don't just add up, they explode. It's the same reason compound interest is called the eighth wonder of the world. $1 invested with consistency grows into something huge over time, not because of massive deposits, but because of small, consistent contributions that compound. The same law applies to your personal growth. Every good habit, every book you read, every hour you invest in your craft is a deposit into your growth account. And when the compound effect kicks in, you suddenly leap ahead of everyone who thought you were just average. Here's where it gets interesting. Momentum itself compounds. When you win once, that victory gives you confidence. That confidence gives you courage to try bigger things. Those bigger things bring bigger wins, and soon the cycle feeds itself. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts small and almost invisible, but as it rolls, it gathers mass, speed, and power until nothing can stop it. That's how compound level-ups feel. You go from invisible to unstoppable. We've seen this in every field. A YouTuber posts for months with no traction, then suddenly a video pops off, which brings subscribers, which boosts the next video, which fuels the algorithm, and suddenly they're living off their content. A small business owner grinds with a handful of clients, then a referral sparks a chain reaction, and in months they're booked solid. None of this happened because of one giant leap. It happened because compounding made small, faithful actions explode into massive results. The Bible captures this idea perfectly with the parable of the talents. The master gave 3 servants different amounts of money. The ones who invested and multiplied their talents were rewarded with more. The one who buried his talent in the ground ended up losing it all. Why? Because growth compounds. What you steward faithfully multiplies, and what you neglect withers. That's not just a spiritual truth, it's the very law of momentum. Here's the part most people miss. Compounding works both ways. Just like good habits multiply into exponential success, bad habits multiply into exponential destruction. One skipped workout becomes a week off, then months off. One small debt grows interest and snowballs into suffocating financial slavery. This is why awareness of your daily habits matters so much. You're either compounding progress or compounding decline. There's no middle ground. In physics, we see this principle in inertia. An object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion. The hardest part is getting started, but once you're moving, the energy compounds. That's why starting with tiny wins is so powerful. Read 1 page, save $1, do 1 push-up. It feels like nothing, but it's building momentum. That momentum is compounding behind the scenes, and when the breakthrough happens, it'll look like you leveled up overnight. In my own journey, I saw this with content creation. For months, posting felt like shouting into a void. No traction, no feedback, nothing. But I kept stacking the habit. Then one day, one video connected. It wasn't luck. It was compound momentum finally breaking through. And from that one spark, everything else accelerated. Suddenly people were calling me lucky, but the truth was it was compounding in silence long before anyone noticed. And that's what makes this so powerful. When you understand compound level-ups, you stop despising small beginnings. You realize the small is where the big comes from. You stop quitting just because you don't see instant results. You know the results are stacking invisibly, waiting for the tipping point. And here's the crazy part. It doesn't just stop at growth. Compounding eventually transforms into multiplication. It moves from steady improvement to unstoppable acceleration. That's the next stage, and it's what separates those who crawl through life from those who seem to rocket through it. And that's exactly what I want to share with you next. When you really start stacking the right habits, positioning yourself in the right environment, and letting compounding do its work, something almost unfair begins to happen. It feels like cheating. Because while everyone else is grinding, sweating, and crawling step by step, you suddenly experience leaps that don't match the effort you appear to put in. People look at you and whisper, "What's his secret?" They think it's luck or some hidden advantage, but in reality, it's the natural acceleration that comes when growth multiplies instead of merely adds. Think of it like a video game. At the beginning, you're collecting coins one by one, barely staying alive, grinding levels with slow progress. But then you unlock a power-up. Suddenly, instead of earning 1 coin at a time, you're scooping up hundreds in seconds. Instead of fighting one enemy at a time, you have a weapon that clears the entire screen. To the outside player, it looks like you've hacked the game. But you didn't cheat. You just reached a level where momentum unlocked a whole new mode of play. That's exactly how exponential growth works in real life. You keep doing the same boring disciplines, reading, practicing, saving, creating, but at some point, the results stop coming in ones and twos. They come in tens, hundreds, and thousands. It feels unfair, because the input looks small compared to the output. It feels like you've broken some hidden rule. But the truth is, you've simply entered multiplication mode. This is why someone can spend years in obscurity, then suddenly blow up overnight. An artist who's been painting for a decade is suddenly called a genius. A YouTuber with years of videos no one watched suddenly goes viral. A small shopkeeper grinds for years, then one partnership transforms his revenue beyond recognition. Outsiders call it overnight success. Insiders know it was years of compounding discipline that finally tipped into acceleration. The Bible shows this over and over. The mustard seed principle, something tiny, almost invisible, becomes a great tree. The harvest principle, you reap much more than you sow. Peter casting the net one more time and suddenly catching so many fish the boat nearly sinks. None of these are fair in human terms. They're multiplication moments. They're the points where God's laws of growth collide with human faithfulness. And the result feels miraculous. And here's the kicker. This is why it feels like cheating. Because the world is conditioned to expect only linear growth. 1 hour of work equals 1 unit of reward. But when you step into alignment with compounding, with smart habits, with God's principles, you stop playing by the world's rules. You're now in a different system where one seed produces 30, 60, even 100-fold. That's why people get jealous. That's why people misunderstand. They're stuck in addition while you've stepped into multiplication. I've seen this in my own life. Times when I was grinding and barely moving forward, I thought maybe I was doing something wrong. But the truth was, I was stacking seeds underground. Then suddenly, one opportunity, one video, one connection unlocked all of it at once. And it felt like cheating. Not because I skipped steps, but because I honored them long enough to reach the tipping point. So the real secret is this. The game isn't rigged against you. The game has levels most people never stick around long enough to reach. But if you do, you unlock multiplication mode. And when you do, life feels like you're breaking the rules. But in reality, you've just learned them. And this is where we'll go next. How to position yourself so that when multiplication mode kicks in, you're ready to handle it, sustain it, and ride the wave instead of being crushed by it. Because if you're not careful, acceleration can be as dangerous as stagnation. Alright, let's bring this home with the final point. How to sustain multiplication without crashing. You see, reaching the stage where progress compounds so fast it feels like cheating is only half the battle. The other half, and this is where most people fall apart, is knowing how to hold it, sustain it, and keep climbing without letting success destroy you. Because acceleration without stability is like putting a rocket engine on a paper airplane. It might take off, but it won't last long before burning out or breaking apart. Think about lottery winners. Overnight they experience multiplication, money raining down in a way that feels unreal. But because they never learned the systems, habits, or identity to sustain it, the blessing becomes a curse. Statistics show most lose it all within a few years. It wasn't that the abundance wasn't real, it's that they hadn't built the capacity to carry it. Multiplication without preparation equals collapse. It's the same in business, faith, relationships, or personal growth. If you're not grounded when acceleration comes, it can overwhelm you. People suddenly demand your time. Opportunities come knocking from every direction. Your influence expands faster than your character. If your roots aren't deep, the wind of success will uproot you. This is why Jesus said the wise man builds his house on the rock. Storms will come, and storms don't only mean failures. Sometimes storms are disguised as blessings, and if you're not ready, they sweep you away just the same. Here's where the cheating feeling returns. Because when you've cultivated the boring fundamentals, habits, boundaries, prayer, consistency, then when success arrives, you hold it with peace. To others, it looks like you skipped the chaos they went through. It looks like you hacked the system. But in truth, you just prepared in private long enough to stand in public without falling apart. Look at David. Before he became king, he spent years in the field with sheep, practicing with a sling, worshiping in secret. To everyone else, he suddenly killed Goliath, as if it was a miraculous fluke. But the truth? He had already killed lions and bears when no one was watching. He had already built the muscles of courage, skill, and faith. So when the giant appeared, he didn't panic. That's what sustaining multiplication looks like. Years of hidden practice that let you carry public victories without breaking. Now let's pull this into practical life. When your business suddenly doubles in sales, do you have the systems to handle customers well, or do you drown in refunds and complaints? When your channel suddenly blows up, do you have the character to stay authentic, or do you compromise to chase applause? When your income multiplies, do you steward it with wisdom, or do you spend faster than you earn? These are the questions that decide whether your multiplication feels like a blessing or a curse. The physics of it makes sense too. In science, when an object accelerates, the pressure on its structure multiplies. That's why airplanes need stronger materials and design as they go faster. If you try to fly at high speeds with weak structure, the whole thing rips apart. Life is the same. God doesn't withhold success from you because he's cruel. Sometimes he withholds it because your structure isn't ready. The acceleration you're praying for could destroy you if you got it too soon. So the delay is not denial, it's mercy. This is why mastery of fundamentals isn't optional. Daily prayer, gratitude, financial discipline, relationship boundaries, self-control. These things may look small and boring, but they are the steel frame that lets you survive multiplication. Without them, acceleration feels like chaos. With them, acceleration feels like favor. And to everyone else, it looks like you found a cheat code. Personally, I've seen both sides. I've had moments where I wasn't ready and the opportunity slipped through my hands. I didn't yet have the systems or maturity to carry it. And I've also had moments where I was ready, where I'd been training in silence, showing up when no one was clapping. And when the breakthrough came, it felt almost effortless. Not because it was easy, but because my structure was finally strong enough to carry it. That's the real hack. That's the real cheat. You build slow so you can grow fast. So here's the conclusion. Multiplication isn't magic, and it isn't random. It's the natural harvest of habits, environments, and identity compounding over time. But to truly benefit from it, you must prepare your foundation. Otherwise, what looks like a blessing can crush you. The good news? If you're faithful with small things, you will be ruler over many. If you build steady in the shadows, you'll stand strong in the spotlight. And when that happens, people will look at your life and say, it's like they're cheating. But you'll know the truth. You weren't cheating. You were just aligned with principles most people ignore. You played the long game while they were distracted by shortcuts. You built deep roots while they chased shiny objects. And because of that, your multiplication is not just a moment, it's a movement. It's not just a spike, it's a sustainable climb. That's how you level up so fast it feels like cheating, and stay there without crashing back down.